So it starts today at 6 p.m., and the question is, what are they going to try to do to add to this nice draft that they had? And I'll say it's a nice draft. We don't know until we see the players out on the court and how they play under Tom Thibodeau's system. But I'm very worried about just diving into the pool with some, aging superstar that was good at one point in time and is coming to the end of his career or is in the middle of trying to resuscitate his career and coming here for a long-term contract. And that's the thing that I think they have to stay away from if they can. Now, if you're going to tell me they're going to be able to get Russell Westbrook and Gordon Hayward on cheaper deals and it's not going to hamstring this franchise possibly in 1 or 2 years from now, then I'd say, okay, it would make for an interesting transition, and it would be kind of fun because you'd bring in guys that have won before. But, when they go and they waive the guys that they just waived, which was also smart because, this is what they were trying to build before this new group got here.
Sure.
They were trying to preach patience initially. And, of course, we as Knicks fans and we just generally as sports fans are not patient, especially when it comes to, the decisions that the Knicks have made over the last 10 years, 20 years for that matter. So, I think that this group has gotten off to a reasonably good start. And now comes the real $40 million question.
Can they help themselves, really, is the question. Can they help themselves?
Can they help themselves short term? Because I know that they want to win now.
Right.
They don't hire Tom Thibodeau to, take a bunch of rookies and try to, get them ready
I disagree
to go.
with that. I actually think that you do hire a Tom Thibodeau in this world of the NBA to work with younger guys because you see how the coaches that, look at Steve Nash. That's a perfect example. Once you get all those superstars in there, they're not going to listen to a guy with a dry erase board any longer. This is the time that you have a Tom Thibodeau, and I think he's really, really good with a younger team that needs to learn how to play the game right and play defense.
Well, I know one thing. He's going to be rough on them, and he's going to run tough practices, and those are all things that I think all of us as fans can appreciate. And we know that he's going to preach defense, and this is one of the things that Obi Toppin was talking about. But then again, I'm like, how do we know whether or not Obi Toppin can play defense? Until we see him. And we have to, this whole narrative that these guys can't do this or they can't do that or, they don't have the right wingspan or they're not rim protectors or they don't space the floor. I'm so sick of it. I just want to see the kid play basketball at a professional level with a professional coach kind of leading him and telling him what to do and where to go and what his expectations are. So hopefully, this is the thing. This is why Thibodeau makes sense for here. But I also know that, look, man, he's like he's an older coach. He doesn't have 20 years left coaching on the sideline. He wants to win now. So that's why this is going to be really interesting as they start delving into free agency,
right.
Whether it be Gordon Hayward or Russell Westbrook or some combination of Russell Westbrook and somebody else. This will be Leon Rose's. This is what everybody's waiting for. We saw the draft. They sat and they waited. They supposedly got the guy that they they coveted. They wanted him, so they got him, and that's great. But now it comes down to what do we do in free agency? And this is usually where the Knicks screw up and make a mistake. Now, they didn't make a mistake last year. They're getting rid of all these guys.
Well, all those guys were short-term deals. It's not going to hurt them.
And that's in the NBA. That's what you have to do. You don't want to get hamstrung.
That was smart.
With bad contracts. Now, the interesting thing to me is that Gordon Hayward opted out of his contract with Boston.
Yeah, well, he probably thinks, and that was 1 year left at $34 million, $35 million. He thinks he could probably get a 2 or 3 year contract, and the amount of guaranteed money he would get in that 2 or 3 year contract would be more than the 35 he'd get in the 1 year. I just want to know, what is the goal for the Knicks? Is the goal to make the playoffs, get some juice around the team, not have the Brooklyn Nets take over the city? Or is the goal to slowly build towards a championship-level organization that's in it every year? Because I have, to this point, loved everything they have done. Like little things, like yesterday when they trade for Ed Davis to take on that contract. It's not Ed Davis that I love. It's the second-round picks that the Jazz gave the Knicks for Ed Davis. Why? Because next year's the first year that high school players are allowed back in the
2023, isn't it?
Well, the year that they got all the picks is the year that the high school players
2023, I think,
for that draft.
Yeah.
So that's smart. That's really smart. Load up on that. Try to build towards the future. But is the short-term fix? Yeah, we're trading for Russell Westbrook and Gordon Hayward, and we'll get a 6 seed at best, then get bounced in the second round of the playoffs? Like, that'll be the ceiling?
But don't you feel like
is that what you want?
I think, like, if you're adding young pieces and you have, R.J. Barrett, and who knows whether or not Kevin Knox is going to be unlocked or what Frank Ntilikina is going to be under, Tom Thibodeau as a defensive specialist or whatever you want to call it. You do have about 8 or 9 young players now. And now the question is, what kind of veterans are you going to surround them with?
And how long are you going to have them?
Yeah, but that's again, that's why I was saying today starts the next step in the process of trying to rebuild the franchise. I personally think they want to win now. And in order to win now, you have to bring in veteran players that have had success in this league. The question is, how long are you going to commit to them, and what is that going to do to you long term when it comes to the next cycle in free agency?
All right, so win now. Your definition of win now.
They're not going to win a championship, but winning now would be trying to get the 500 and trying to get the 8th seed. That's a win now situation. And by the way,
that's the worst place in the world you can be in the NBA.
I know, because you're right in the middle of everything. But as long as they don't mortgage the future for like a Carmelo Anthony or somebody like that has a 7-year deal, then I'm good with it. If they get a Russell Westbrook or Gordon Hayward on a shorter, cheaper deal, then I'm okay with that too. I mean, like, I understand. I'd like to see some winners and winning basketball. I mean, I just don't want to watch rookies running up and down the court or 3-year players running up and down the court, like with their hair on fire, not knowing what the hell they're doing.
I agree, but I also don't want to be in a situation where the Knicks go out there, give 2 or 3 years to Gordon Hayward, trade for the final 2 years of Russell Westbrook, and now you're sitting here on this mediocre treadmill, and then let's say, a guy like Giannis says, I want out, and I'm looking around at the places that have cap space. He's interested in New York, and then we're tied up into these two guys, and you can't offer him a deal.
So we're talking, let's face it, we're talking 21 and 22 is what we're talking about, the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. The next 2 years should, Gordon Hayward, totally healthy, can he regain what he once was before he got to the Celtics and, that ballyhooed signing with them and everything else? I don't know that. Only the guys that, in the NBA know that. It seems like somebody wants him, or he wouldn't have opted out. So somebody wants him. Somebody really covets him and will cover the money.
There's only a couple teams that have the cap space. That's why the Knicks are being talked about.
Atlanta and the Knicks.
Those are the two.
Right. So the thing for me is I want competitive basketball. I'm not being unrealistic, because they don't have the combination of superstars that you need to make a serious run in the playoffs. But with the coach, with the younger players, and bringing in a couple of leader types, alpha male types that are going to buy into what the Knicks are trying to do here, then I'm all good with that. I'm fine with that. I just, the problem is that they have been such a disaster for so long,
right,
and been so nondescript. So
just being relevant is good enough. Well, and that's the thing that's a problem
but
for
relevant
me.
To the point where they're building to get into the playoffs. I'd like to see them make the playoffs. So why can't they?
Well, they could, but, I mean, we've seen that before. Like, is there anything more boring than a team that's a couple games under or over 500 in the NBA towards the end of 7 or 8 seed that just gets crushed by the 1 seed or 2 seed?
But if I see R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin all of a sudden coming together, and, I got to believe that R.J. Barrett's going to be even bit better this year, because he's going to understand really what it now means to be a professional basketball. He's going to come back, I bet you, physically bigger. He'll look good. So I believe that he should be able to take the next step. And then you add Obi Toppin. It's not a 19-year-old. He's a 22-year-old.
Right.
And this kid wasn't handed anything. No, he had to earn everything, and then ends up taking a 5th year and then goes to Dayton and then becomes the player of the year. You got to respect that.
Yeah, the Russell Westbrook thing, to me, I could talk myself into it, but I still think it's a bad idea. See, because I'm like you, and I'm like a lot of Knicks fans, that has just been so beaten down that if you're telling me I can have a team that has a chance to win every night, a team that might give me a playoff game or two, that sounds enticing to me. And I could also see Russell Westbrook, and the type of guy that he is, with the way things ended in Oklahoma City, the year in Houston going the way that it is. But wait, on top of that, Kevin Durant. Remember that whole relationship?
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right, so now you got both those guys in the same city.
They'd run into a club and he'd punch him in the face or something?
Well, no, just like the chip on the shoulder, like, okay, buddy.
I kind of love that. Though.
Right, so I could talk myself into it. But then I remember that he's a me-first player. He's always been a me-first player, and he's making so much money
I know, but he's
that
also
it just saddles you.
But, gee, you know what? He's also a balls-to-the-wall player. He is 100% effort all the time. And, I kind of think that's whether he's a ball hog or whatever you want to say, he's a balls-to-the-wall player. I don't care what anybody says. He gives maximum effort. I've always appreciated the way that he has played. I've always felt that he's fearless. Now, the older they get, the less fearless they become, and the more
that's the other part of him.
Decisions they start to make.
He's going to the basket, going to the basket, going to the basket. It's not like he's someone who could post up and just can threes until he's 40 years old.
I know, but that's why the Knicks have got to add shooters. But I also know, for some reason, I just feel like his edge, you look at him, you feel like he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Sure.
And I always feel like he plays that way. And I feel like with Thibodeau here now, and when the Knicks of the 90s were good, the whole franchise had a chip on its shoulder. From Pat Riley to Jeff Van Gundy to Thibodeau and all these guys, they all had chips on their shoulders. They all were like, we're the badass Knicks, and we're going to beat the hell out of you, and we're going to play defense. I don't know. I kind of think that maybe that personality and the fact that it is the Knicks, the fact that it is Madison Square Garden, and the fact that he has Thibodeau as a coach, that actually may work. I don't know. But to me, at least that would be interesting. At least, 20 games into the season, I wouldn't click the TV off and not want to watch it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a comparison here that I thought about yesterday with Russell Westbrook that actually worked out.
Okay.
So remember A.J. Burnett's tenure as a New York Yankee was not great.
Who could forget that mess?
Was not great.
Right.
So, and I was here for the beginning of that.
Yep.
And then I went to Pittsburgh while he was towards the end of that. And there was talks about A.J. Burnett going to the Pirates. And I was like the guy screaming because I just come from New York going, you can't have this guy. This guy's a total bum. Whatever. But then he came over, and it was a young team that was building, and he had a chip on his shoulder. He had an edge. He got out of a place that was toxic, and he had something to prove. And he was that leader that I never thought he could be. And I'm kind of getting the same vibes with Russell Westbrook, that there's been 2 back-to-back years now where he has been not in a good place. And he's going to a team that needs something like him, and he's got a rival and a now enemy in Brooklyn, and maybe he embraces this opportunity and says, I want to be the man in New York for a couple of years and make this place real again. Yeah, and that's I thought that those two guys in those two situations were similar. I never thought that was going to work with A.J. Burnett. I'm not thinking it's going to work with Russell Westbrook, but hell, maybe it would.
Maybe it will, but it would make it interesting. Now, again, that's a trade. That's basically what that comes down to.
Of course.
You got to figure out what assets do the Knicks have to trade for a guy like that.
But think about the money that he's making. Like, you're doing them a favor.
Of course you're doing them a favor, but they also, even like in their discussions about wanting to trade Harden or Harden wanting to come to the Nets, everybody's like, this is what you got to get. This is what you got to give up to get that guy.
Harden's different. You got to trade your whole organization for Harden.
Why?
Russell Westbrook is because he's the guy that automatically can put you right where you need to be.
And the only thing I would say for the Nets, and I don't really care, but look, if you want to go trade for Russell Westbrook, I think you got a winning team right now, assuming everybody's healthy. They have a winning team right now, and if they need to make a trade or something in season to get a different type of guy or somebody else that they think would fit better, that's what I would do. To bring James Harden here would be going, I think, down the path of disaster, which would be fun to watch, but that's. I think they have a good team, assuming that Kevin Durant's going to return to the player that he was when he was the best player of basketball when he was playing with the Warriors.
I'm going to throw something out there. You tell me if this works. The beginning of the season, Ben Simmons will be on the Houston Rockets. James Harden will be on the Philadelphia 76ers. And Russell Westbrook will be on the New York Knicks.
I could see it.
You could see that happening?
Definitely. Well, Daryl Morey in Philadelphia. And the question is Daryl Morey, I would think that he and James Harden got along.
No, they did. Yeah. I mean, his entire life was building around James Harden.
Right.
And now he doesn't have James Harden. And he's probably thinking, all right, it really hasn't worked here in Philly. They've gotten to a certain point. The Embiid-Simmons thing is a little dicey. I don't know. Let's get James in here, put him with Embiid. We'll get Ben Simmons out of here, and then we'll see how that goes. I could totally see that.
The other thing, too, is like at 6:01, if the Knicks said, the Knicks are announcing a signing of a free agent, and we all went, okay, who is it? And all of a sudden we hear the names Anthony Davis.
No, it's not.
Oh, my God.
You dream of the most impossible scenarios
Why
for
not?
your team.
I know.
He's going back to the Lakers, just like DJ LeMahieu's going back to the Yankees, and you got to forget about those things.
We're getting him, too.
No, you're not.
And look, I'm just spending Steve Cohen's money. I don't really care. He's got as much money as he's got, then he's got to do the right thing right now and go out and get DJ LeMahieu, JT Realmuto, George Springer, and Trevor Bauer. Bring the four of those guys in here. We'll be good to go.
So, by the way, have you been paying attention to Steve Cohen's Twitter by any chance?
Yes.
All right, so he's had a lot of really interesting things that he said. So
Bobby
one of
Bonilla
which...
Day?
What's that?
Did you see the one on Bobby Bonilla Day?
I did see that. So he wanted to have Bobby Bonilla just come back every year, and they hand him a big check, and then they drive him around the stadium.
And then one of the fans tweeted back at him, everybody gets a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Bobby Bonilla got $1 million. We got a T-shirt.
There was one on buying the Jets. Someone said, could Steve Cohen buy the Jets? He goes, trust me, no shot, which I thought was great. Yeah, so this guy, Danny Baggs, he tweeted, Steve Cohen has remarked in the past about buying the Jets. He even stated he has no interest right now, but the dream might not be over. And he said, trust me, no shot. And it was also, he tweeted at one of the baseball guys. All right, so here we go. John Morosi tweeted out sources
from John Morosi.
Sources.
Now, I don't want to be condescending. I don't want to be disrespectful.
So just go for it. Who cares?
Who the hell's John Morosi?
He's been covering baseball for a long time. He used to go by John Paul Morosi. He's now just John Morosi.
That's why I knew the John Paul Morosi. I didn't know the John Morosi.
All right. So John Morosi, he dropped the Paul.
Yeah.
So he said sources. Mike Chernoff will formally interview for Mets president of baseball operations job.
Since that Chernoff lied to us yesterday on our phone call.
Well, wait.
Oh.
Steve Cohen responded to that tweet and said, not that I'm aware of, wrong again.
Oh, that's a shame.
So I don't know.
So he's going to be tweeting now to all these source-related stories.
I love it. He could come to my house and spit on me.
No, he cannot.
I'm using that as an example just to show you how much I love this man.
Yeah.
And I would say, thank you, Steve. May I have another? That's what I would say. And I'd shake his hand.
Look,
he can't do anything wrong.
Just give me DJ LeMahieu.
That's not going to happen.
JT Realmuto.
No.
George Springer. No. And Trevor Bauer, and let's call it a day. And then you can let whoever Sandy hires as GM and everything fix the bottom part of the organization, fix all that up, get it all straightened out, and then we'll move forward. But right now, it's his money. He's got so much of it. I keep hearing about it, and he's not in this to make money.
He's not.
And, the funny thing is that the writers, a lot of the writers, I shouldn't say everyone, but the ones that I did read, the ones that I know, that I respect,
sure,
and that they know baseball, and they know New York sports, and they understand how things work around here, all said the same thing, and that was with Robinson Cano, getting suspended. Oh, now the Mets have money to spend. No.
They always have money to spend.
Even with Robinson Cano, they have money to spend.
Yeah, this isn't the Wilpons anymore.
No. He has more money to spend than anybody.
It's just.
And out of all the other teams in Major League Baseball, guess what? My man has got more money than everybody.
By more than double.
And is he in this to make money?
No, he told us
he was not. What is he in it for?
To win.
To win.
He's a winner.
It's like me. I'm in it to win it.
You are.
You're not. When we play softball, I'm in it to win it.
Right.
And if I got to sit you down and I got to say, hey, take the seat on the pine and relax. We're going to win the game, and you're going to leave happy, and you're going to go out there, party with your teammates and celebrate a win. That's what we're going to do.
And like you've told me many times.
I'm like Joe Judge, man. I am all about the team. That's all there is to it.
And you've told me many times before, even with this radio show, you're in it to win. You do it for free. That's what you've told me many times off the air.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.